I never thought marrying the love of my life would lead me into the most complicated relationship of my entire existence. With his mother. When I met Daniel, I felt like I had finally found my home. We were both living in Austin, Texas, and met through mutual friends at a small coffee shop downtown. From the very beginning, we had that magical spark, the kind you only read about in novels. He was gentle, respectful, and kind-hearted. I felt safe with him. I came from a very modest background. My parents were schoolteachers in a small town in Oklahoma, and we never had much, but we had love. Daniel, on the other hand, came from a wealthy family with deep roots in Texas society. His mother, Eleanor, was known in Austin as a powerful woman with an intimidating presence. I had no idea how much her presence would soon begin to control my life. When I first met Eleanor, she gave me a warm smile and hugged me politely, but something in her eyes felt cold, calculated. She had a way of speaking that always made me feel smaller, like I had walked into a world where I didn't belong. Still, I tried. I laughed at her stories, helped her cook, complimented her garden, and smiled through every passive-aggressive comment. I thought if I showed her how much I loved her son, she'd come to love me too. But no matter what I did, it was never enough. After we got married, Daniel and I moved into the guest house on Eleanor's estate until we could buy a place of our own. The house was beautiful, a historic brick home in Westlake Hills, surrounded by tall trees and wildflowers, but I never felt it belonged to us. It was hers. Every inch of it smelled like control. Every cushion, every curtain, every plate we ate off of was something she had picked. She reminded me of that often. "You're lucky to be here," she once said with a soft smile that somehow chilled me. Not everyone gets to live in this kind of comfort. I would just nod, hiding the tears that burned behind my eyes. I didn't want Daniel to feel torn between us. I loved him too much to put him in that position. Still, something inside me began to change. I started waking up with a heaviness in my chest. I couldn't eat. I would cry silently in the shower so Daniel wouldn't hear. He had no idea how her subtle words and fake kindness were breaking me slowly, day by day. I started feeling like a guest in my own life. But I kept telling myself, it's temporary. We're saving to buy our own home. She's just old-fashioned. Things will get better. One evening, about 9 months into our marriage, I came back from my part-time job at the library, and I found Eleanor sitting with Daniel in the living room. They both looked quiet, serious. I sat down, heart pounding. Eleanor smiled and said, "We were just talking about the future." She looked at Daniel, then back at me. "You know, dear, I've been thinking. It's important to keep the family's assets secure. I've decided to make a few updates to my will." Something in me froze. Her words were sweet, but the look in her eyes wasn't. She glanced at me too long, as if measuring my reaction. Daniel tried to make it sound normal. "It's just legal stuff," he said, rubbing my arm. "Mom wants to simplify things." I nodded slowly, even though my stomach felt like it had fallen to the floor. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way she had looked at me. There was something behind her words. Something she wasn't saying out loud. 2 days later, I overheard a conversation that shattered whatever peace I was trying to hold on to. I had gone to the main house to drop off a package that was mistakenly delivered to us, and as I walked toward the kitchen, I heard Eleanor talking on the phone in her study. I stopped when I heard my name. "She's sweet, but she doesn't belong in this family. I'm not leaving her a single dime. Daniel will understand. It's for the best." My heart stopped. I didn't breathe. I stood there, frozen, feeling like a child hearing her parents talk about giving her away. I backed away slowly, left the package on the steps, and walked back to our little guest house in silence. I couldn't tell Daniel. Not yet. I didn't want to hurt him, but I felt something inside me break that day. All the love and hope I had carried into this family started to bleed out of me like a wound I couldn't stop. I cried myself to sleep, shaking, holding the pillow close like it could protect me. For the first time I realized that Eleanor didn't just dislike me. She was trying to erase me. To pretend I didn't exist. She didn't just want me out of the will. She wanted me out of her world. But that's the thing about breaking people. Sometimes when you try to destroy someone, you end up waking them up instead. Something inside me began to burn. I didn't know what I would do next, but I knew one thing. I was done being quiet. Done being polite. If Eleanor wanted to play games, she had no idea who she was up against. And then, as if fate wanted to give me the tiniest thread to pull on, something unexpected happened the very next day. Eleanor made a phone call in the backyard while I was watering the roses. She didn't know I was behind the hedges. Her voice was low, but I heard her say, "Yes, I'm thinking of putting the house on the market." Discreetly. My heart skipped a beat. She was selling her house. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning felt different. I woke up before the sun and just stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened over the past year. I remembered every little moment. How Eleanor smiled at me on our wedding day, how she gave me her mother's necklace as a welcome to the family gift, and how I believed with all my heart that she truly cared about me. It all felt like a cruel joke now. That necklace. I hadn't seen it in months. She had asked to clean it and never returned it. Just another lie dressed in sweetness. I sat up in bed, looking at Daniel as he slept beside me. His face was calm, peaceful, unaware of the storm that had already started to stir in my heart. I didn't want to wake him. I didn't want to start this day with another lie. As I stood in the kitchen making coffee, I couldn't stop thinking about that phone call I had heard. Eleanor was going to sell the house. The same house where Daniel had grown up, the same one she had sworn she would never part with. That house was her pride, her power, and her history. If she was really thinking of letting it go, then something was going on. And maybe, just maybe, this was my chance. I had never wanted revenge. All I ever wanted was to belong. But now, after months of humiliation, of pretending to be okay, of crying behind closed doors, something inside me whispered that I couldn't let her win. Not like this. Not quietly. I called my college friend Ava. She was a real estate agent in Austin. Sharp, trustworthy, and brutally honest. I hadn't spoken to her in a while, but I knew she'd listen without judgment. When I told her everything about Eleanor, the overheard call, the will, her reaction was immediate. "Let me handle it," she said, her voice full of fire. "We'll watch every move she makes. If she lists that house, I'll know first." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. It was small, fragile, but it was real. I wasn't alone in this anymore. Over the next few days, I acted normal. I smiled at Eleanor, complimented her garden, laughed at her jokes, and helped her cook Sunday dinner. It was painful. Every word out of my mouth felt like glass. But I kept my mask on. Had to. She couldn't suspect anything. I watched her closely. How she started sorting through old boxes, how she spent hours on the phone in hushed tones, how she locked her study every time she left it. Something was definitely happening, and I was right in the middle of it. Daniel noticed the change in me. He asked if I was okay more than once. I wanted to scream the truth, to tell him everything, but I couldn't. Not yet. He still believed his mother was just opinionated and a little tough to please. He didn't know the woman behind the curtain. And I didn't want to break his heart. So, I kissed him, told him I was just tired, and held on to him a little longer every night. A week later, Ava called. "She's doing it," she said. "I have confirmation. Eleanor has quietly contacted a buyer through a private broker. She's trying to sell without anyone in the neighborhood knowing. But here's the thing, you could buy it first. I can arrange something through a third party. She'll never know it's you until it's too late." My heart started racing. I walked to the backyard, pacing under the old oak tree, the same place where Eleanor had once told me, "This land has been in our family for generations." I had memorized every inch of this house. Every chipped tile in the kitchen. Every creaking stair. Every blooming rose in the garden. I never imagined owning it. And now, the idea of turning it into something that truly belonged to me, it made my hands tremble. "But I don't have that kind of money," I whispered, even though the idea had already taken root in my heart. Ava was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You have savings." You told me you got some inheritance from your grandmother. And you and Daniel have been saving for a house. I can help you with the loan. Trust me, if there's ever a time to take a risk, it's now. I thought about my grandma. She had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 14. She was strong, kind, and wise. Before she passed, she held my hand and said, "Don't ever let someone make you feel like you don't belong. You're enough. You always have been." That memory hit me hard. It brought tears to my eyes. I knew then I had to do this. Not just for me, but for every time I stayed silent, every night I cried, every moment I let Eleanor's words steal a piece of me. We moved quickly. Ava did everything through her contacts, and within 10 days, a deal was in motion. Eleanor had no idea it was me behind the scenes. I kept smiling at her, helping her plan her so-called fresh start in a condo downtown. She was thrilled with the offer she had received, never questioning who it came from. It almost felt too easy. But inside I was holding my breath. Because even though we were so close, something felt off. Too smooth. Too quiet. One night, while Daniel was asleep, I walked into the guest room and opened the bottom drawer of the old dresser where we kept old documents. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe proof, maybe answers. But I found something I wasn't expecting. It was an old envelope, yellowed with time, addressed to Daniel from his late father. The letter inside wasn't long. Talked about the house. How it was meant to be passed down to Daniel one day. How he should protect it because it carried more than memories, it carried truths. I stared at that letter for a long time, the words burning into my mind. Did Daniel know about this? Did Eleanor hide it from him on purpose? Was this why she was trying to sell the house so quickly, so quietly? My hands were shaking when I folded the letter back into the envelope. My heart was racing again, but not from fear, from something else. A deeper question had just opened up in front of me, one I didn't have an answer for yet. And I knew, without a doubt, that Eleanor was hiding more than just her will. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter. It had been a few days since I found it, and yet, the words still echoed in my mind, refusing to let go. The house carries truths. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Eleanor had hidden from everyone, especially Daniel. Why had his father left him that letter? What had he meant by truths? I couldn't help but feel like I was standing on the edge of something much bigger than I could understand, something that could change everything. But I didn't want to alarm Daniel. Not yet. I had to figure this out on my own first. My stomach was twisted in knots every time I thought about confronting Eleanor. I didn't know if I was ready for whatever secret she was holding, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't let her get away with this anymore. Days turned into weeks, and I played the part of the doting daughter-in-law, smiling and pretending to be her friend. But underneath, my heart was a storm of questions. Eleanor had no idea I had discovered the letter. She had no idea that I was quietly piecing together the truth of her plans, her manipulations, and her secrets. The more I observed her, the more her actions started to seem rehearsed. The way she spoke about the house as if it were just a property, just an asset to be sold without any emotion attached to it. Yet, it was clear it meant so much more to her, especially to her late husband. Didn't make sense. Then, one evening everything changed. Daniel and I were sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. We didn't have many quiet moments like that, and I cherished every second of it. He leaned over, kissed my forehead and sighed. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice soft. "Mom has been acting so strange lately. She keeps talking about selling the house, and she doesn't even seem sad about it. It's like she's already detached from it." His words made my heart skip a beat. Had he noticed it too? Was he starting to see through her? Or was he just confused like I had been? "Do you think she's making the right decision?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but inside I was anything but calm. Daniel looked out over the yard, his eyes distant. "I don't know. But I feel like there's something she's not telling me. Maybe it's just that she's getting older, and she's ready for a change, but..." He trailed off, shaking his head. "It doesn't feel right." I knew right then that the door was slightly open. He was starting to question his mother's actions, and I had to be careful. If I pushed too hard, he might pull away, but if I didn't say something, I might lose the chance to ever get him to see the truth. The next morning I decided to take a risk. I waited until Daniel left for work, then drove to a small library in downtown Austin. I had spent the night going through old records, trying to find any mention of Eleanor and her husband's plans for the house. What I discovered next nearly made my heart stop. I found a real estate document from over 20 years ago, signed by both Eleanor and her husband. The property was supposed to be kept within the family, passed down to their children, and eventually to their grandchildren. It was clear that they had intended for the house to remain a family legacy, and yet Eleanor was preparing to sell it to strangers. This wasn't just about money. This was about something far deeper. A betrayal of her late husband's wishes, a disregard for the history that this house carried. I felt sick to my stomach. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run home and tell Daniel everything, but I couldn't yet. I needed more answers. I needed to understand why Eleanor was doing this. Was it greed? Was there something else at play? My mind was spinning, and I had to keep it together for just a little while longer. I carefully placed the documents back in their folder and drove back to the house, my heart racing. When I got home, Eleanor was sitting in the garden, her hands folded neatly in her lap, staring at the roses. It was as if she had been waiting for me. I forced myself to walk over to her, to act as if nothing was wrong. "The garden looks beautiful today," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up at me with that same cool smile, the one that always made me feel like I was just a visitor in her world. "Thank you, dear. I've been working on it." Her eyes flickered toward the house, and for a brief moment, I saw something different in her expression. It wasn't a smile. It wasn't warmth. It was something colder. "You know," she said, her voice low, "I've been thinking about what's best for Daniel. This house. It's been too much for him. He doesn't need all this responsibility. It's time to let go." I felt my stomach twist. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. But instead of confronting her head-on, I chose my words carefully. "But it means so much to him, Eleanor. This house. It's part of his father's legacy. It's part of his childhood." I was trying to test her to see if she would reveal anything more. She didn't respond right away. She just looked at the ground, her lips pressed tightly together. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "Sometimes legacies are meant to be left behind," she said, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "You don't understand yet, but you will." Her words sent a chill down my spine. What did she mean by that? Was she talking about me? Or was she referring to something else entirely? The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, made my heart race with fear. There was more to this story, and I needed to know what it was. As I walked away, my mind was spinning faster than ever. I knew there was no going back now. I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it would be. That night, after Daniel had fallen asleep, I went back to the desk where I had hidden the real estate documents. I started going through them again, hoping I had missed something, hoping I could find a clue that would unlock everything. That's when I found it, a letter. It was from a lawyer, dated just a few weeks before Eleanor had started making her plans to sell the house. The letter was addressed to her, and it mentioned something that took my breath away. It wasn't just about selling the house. It was about securing her wealth, her money, her property, her control, and cutting Daniel out of it entirely. My hands trembled as I read those words. Eleanor had been preparing for this moment long before she ever let me in on her plan. She had been plotting this for years. And now, I was standing at the edge of something much darker than I had ever imagined. I had no choice now. I had to expose the truth, no matter what it cost me. The night felt different. The air in the house was heavier, as though it was waiting for something to happen. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter, the one from the lawyer. Kept playing over and over in my mind. Eleanor had been planning this for a long time, and I was just starting to scratch the surface of her true intentions. But I still had so many questions. Why was she doing this? Was it truly about the house, or was there something else driving her actions? I didn't know if I could face Daniel with this knowledge. I had always prided myself on being honest with him, but this was different. If I told him now, I risked losing his trust forever. And if I kept this from him, I was complicit in his mother's betrayal. I was trapped. The more I thought about it, the more the weight of the situation seemed to crush me. I knew I had to act soon, but I was terrified of what might happen next. I sat at the kitchen table that night, staring at the letter from the lawyer in my hands. The words felt cold, almost accusatory, as though they were telling me that everything I had thought I knew about Eleanor was wrong. She had been playing a game and I had no idea what the rules were. The letter was clear. She had every intention of cutting Daniel out of the inheritance. This wasn't just about the house. It was about control, about power, about something much deeper than I had ever imagined. I thought about calling the lawyer, but something inside me held me back. I didn't know if I could trust anyone with this information yet. I needed more answers, more pieces of the puzzle. I needed to know what Eleanor was hiding. So, the next morning I decided to confront her again. This time I had to go in prepared. As I made my way to the kitchen, Eleanor was sitting at the table, sipping her coffee, her eyes already fixed on me. She always seemed to know when I was about to ask her something difficult. Her gaze never wavered, and in that moment, I knew she had something to hide. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound casual, though my heart was racing. "I've been thinking about everything. About the house, and about what's best for Daniel." I watched her closely as she placed her cup down. She didn't say anything at first, just nodded slightly, almost like she was expecting me to speak. Her silence was deafening. "Eleanor, you know that the house means a lot to Daniel, right? It's not just bricks and mortar to him. It's his family's history. His father's legacy. I think you're making a huge mistake by selling it. Don't you see that?" Her face remained unreadable, but her hands trembled ever so slightly as she reached for her coffee again. I could feel her resistance, her refusal to admit that anything was wrong. But I had to push. I couldn't keep pretending. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Is it about the money? Or is there something else going on that you're not telling me?" Her eyes flickered for just a second, but she quickly regained her composure. "You don't understand," she said in a low, almost dismissive tone. "This house is a burden, not a blessing. It's too much for Daniel to carry. It's too much for any of us. It's time for him to let go of the past, and it's time for me to move on." Her words felt like a slap across my face. There it was again, this insistence that Daniel had to let go of something that meant so much to him. I had no idea where all this was coming from, but I couldn't sit idly by anymore. "Eleanor, you're not making any sense. You know this is Daniel's home and you're just trying to take it from him." Her eyes narrowed, and I saw a flicker of something dark in them, something I had never noticed before. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You don't know anything," she snapped. "You have no idea what it's like to have to carry the weight of this family. You have no idea what I've had to sacrifice. This house isn't just a house. It's a chain and I'm cutting it loose. You think you understand me? Don't. You've never understood a thing about me." Her words stung, cutting through me like a knife. I stood there, shocked, not knowing how to respond. She was so angry, so bitter, and I had no idea why. Why was she pushing me away like this? Why was she pushing Daniel away? Before I could say anything else, she turned and walked out of the room. My heart was racing in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just touched the tip of an iceberg, that there was so much more beneath the surface that I wasn't seeing. I knew I had to find out what it was. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Daniel was busy with work, and I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Eleanor. I needed to know what had happened in this house, what kind of history it carried. But I didn't know where to begin. All I had were fragments, pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit together yet. That night after dinner I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, my mind racing with thoughts of Eleanor, the house, the letter. I couldn't stand the thought of her getting away with this. I had to keep digging. I had to find the truth. So I got up and went to the attic. The house was quiet, the only sound the creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet. I had been up here before, of course, but I had never really paid attention to the things hidden away in the corners. I started searching through old boxes, old files, and dusty albums. And then, buried under a pile of old blankets, I found something that made my heart stop. It was a box of photographs, black and white, faded with age. I opened it carefully, my hands trembling. The first picture was of Eleanor and her husband, younger, smiling, standing in front of the house. But it wasn't just any picture. There was something about the way they were looking at each other, something in their eyes that made my heart race. There was a secret in that look, a connection between them that I couldn't quite understand. I turned the page, and my breath caught in my throat. There, in the next photograph, was a picture of Eleanor's husband with another woman. A woman I didn't recognize. They were standing together in front of the house, but the warmth in their smiles was unmistakable. This wasn't just a photograph. It was a story I had no idea existed. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The house wasn't just a house. It was a symbol, a piece of something far more complicated. And Eleanor, she wasn't just protecting herself. She was hiding something that went back decades, something that could change everything. I was closer than ever to the truth, but now I had to decide. Was I ready to face what it all meant? Or was I too scared to uncover the secret that had been buried for so long? I sat there, frozen, the weight of Eleanor's words pressing down on me like 1,000 bricks. My mind was racing, trying to process what she had just told me. Her sister. In love with her husband. An affair. I couldn't wrap my head around it. All these years I had believed Eleanor was this perfect, strong woman. Someone I could never really understand, but someone I respected. But now she was sitting there telling me things that were so painful, so raw, that it made my chest tighten with emotion. How had she lived with this secret all this time? How had she hidden it from everyone, including her son, Daniel, who trusted her without question? I felt a pit grow in my stomach as the reality of what I had just learned began to sink in. She didn't meet my eyes as she spoke, her voice barely audible, as if she was confessing something too shameful to even say aloud. I never wanted Daniel to know. It would have broken him. He would have hated me. Hated his father. I couldn't do that to him. Her hands were trembling, clutching the photo album in front of her like a lifeline. I could see the pain etched on her face, the years of guilt, the regret. But I couldn't help but wonder why she had never confided in anyone, why she had kept this secret for so long. Why had she chosen to suffer in silence, carrying the burden of a lie all these years? I wanted to reach out to her to comfort her, but the anger inside me was too strong. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell Daniel? We could have helped you. You didn't have to carry this alone, I said, my voice shaking. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had to stay strong. I had to understand. Eleanor's eyes were clouded with sorrow as she looked up at me, her face pale. I was afraid, Charlotte, she whispered. Afraid that if I told the truth, it would destroy everything we've worked for. This house, our family, all of it. I couldn't bear the thought of losing Daniel. Losing you. I thought I was protecting everyone by keeping it a secret. I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat. How could she think that keeping this secret was the right thing to do? How could she believe that protecting herself from the truth was more important than protecting her family? I felt like I didn't even know her anymore. This woman, who had always been so strong and in control, was now a shadow of that person, broken by the weight of a lie that had been eating away at her for years. Eleanor, I said, my voice quieter now. I understand why you kept this from us. I understand how much you were trying to protect us. But this isn't just about you. It's about all of us. It's about Daniel, about me, about the life we've built together. We have to be honest with each other, or it's all going to fall apart. She nodded, tears now streaming down her face. I know, Charlotte. No. I just didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to make it right. I sat there in silence for a moment, letting her words sink in. The truth was ugly, painful, and heartbreaking, but it was the truth. And no matter how much we wished it weren't, it had to be faced. I had to make a choice. I could either keep this secret, protect Eleanor and the family from the pain of knowing the truth, or I could confront it, expose the lie, and risk everything falling apart. I knew what I had to do. I had to tell Daniel. I had to let him know what his mother had been hiding all these years. But the thought of seeing the hurt in his eyes, the pain that would come with the truth, made my heart ache. I didn't want to be the one to break his world. But the truth had a way of surfacing whether we wanted it to or not. I took a deep breath and stood up, my hands shaking as I reached for the door. Eleanor didn't try to stop me. She knew what I had to do just as I did. But as I walked out the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of the end. That night when Daniel came home, I sat him down. I could see the worry in his eyes as he looked at me, sensing that something was wrong. "What's going on, Charlotte?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I didn't know how to begin. How could I possibly explain what I had learned? How could I tell him that everything he knew about his family was a lie? I took a deep breath and spoke slowly, carefully. "Daniel, there's something I need to tell you. Something about your mother." His face tightened as I spoke, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What about Mom?" he asked, his voice tense. I didn't know how to say it. How could I tell him that his mother, the woman he had always admired, had been hiding a painful secret from him? I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me, the fear of what would come next. But I had to be strong. I had to tell him the truth. "Daniel," I said softly, "your mother, she had an affair with your father's sister. It was years ago, but it's been a secret she's kept for so long. She never told you because she was afraid of what it would do to you. She thought it would destroy everything." His face went pale, and for a moment he didn't speak. I could see the shock in his eyes, the disbelief. Felt like the world had stopped spinning. I wanted to reach out to him, to comfort him, but I knew this was something he had to process on his own. "You're lying," he said finally, his voice shaking. "That's not true. Mom would never." "I wish it weren't true, Daniel," I interrupted, my voice filled with emotion. "But it is. I wish I could take the pain away, but I can't. All we can do now is face it, and try to move forward." He sat there, staring at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger, hurt, and disbelief. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey for all of us. The truth had come out, and there was no going back. As the days passed, Daniel and I struggled to pick up the pieces of our broken world. His relationship with his mother was forever changed, and though he tried to forgive her, I could see the distance growing between them. It was as if a part of him had died that day. The trust, the connection, everything they had built together seemed to slip away, piece by piece. I don't know if things will ever be the same. I don't know if we'll ever fully heal from the pain, but I do know one thing. The truth may be painful, but it's the only thing that can set us free. And maybe, just maybe, we'll find a way to move forward, to rebuild what was broken. But for now, all I can do is hold on, and hope that someday we'll all find peace.